Wow. Yeah, I just saw the Winnie the Pooh horror movie, Blood and Honey, and it is without exaggeration one of the stinkiest horror films I've ever had the pleasure of watching, and undoubtedly in the top 10 worst films I've ever seen in theaters, which is truly an honor because I've seen all kinds of worthless, absolute trash. Now, I'm sure you all know Winnie the Pooh's public domain now, which is why this film was able to be made in the first place. This isn't like an official Winnie the Pooh production. It's not canon. This isn't going to be part of the established Winnie the Pooh lore. The property went to the public domain Thunderdome, meaning anybody could use and abuse it freely. So a lot of people tried to latch on to the tit and suckle some milk out of the power of the IP. And this led to this production here. It was a very cheap one that was haphazardly thrown together, clearly trying to capitalize off the wackiness of its concept. What if Winnie the Pooh killed people? And that's about it. That's as far as the creativity goes. And it's very clear they rushed the fuck out of this because nothing works. This is the laziest, most unapologetic cash grab I've ever seen in my life. But it doesn't even have the decency to be self-aware. It is bad at everything it tries to do, and it doesn't even do it with like a smile on its face. Of course, I knew going into this it was going to be bad. Anyone with eyes could see that this would be dog shit. I mean, just look at the costume. They didn't even bother putting any effort into Winnie the Pooh or Piglet. They just found the cheapest masks available at Party City, and then just had two guys wearing the masks. That's it. They also have human hands. And also a lot of times the mask kind of rides up a little bit so you can just see like a normal human actor underneath the mask. It's just a disaster. This is one of the few films where I actually took notes during it because I felt like I was so insulted and I couldn't believe what I was watching. So I jotted down a few notes during this, also because it was basically just me and Aaron in this movie theater watching it together, fucking stunned by what we were witnessing. It is truly a catastrophe on every level, but I will openly say it was fun bad. It was. I'm happy to report it wasn't boring bad. Its sheer incompetence and its inability to do anything right while not being self-aware made it a fun, enjoyably shit film. So I'd like to walk you through a lot of what happens here. Clearly we're going to get in spoiler territory, so fair warning, though I don't know why you'd give a fuck about spoilers for this kind of movie. It's not exactly heavy on the narrative at all. So let's go ahead and dive in. Just to give you a quick example of how much they cared about doing this cheaply, they don't have Winnie or Piglet talk. They clearly wanted to save money on the budget by not having additional voice actors try and impersonate Winnie or Piglet, so they came up with this. During a harsh winter, Winnie the Pooh hatched this genius idea to eat Eeyore in order to save the rest of them. So they sacrifice Eeyore for the greater good, they eat him, and then take a vow of silence because they were so traumatized by what they had done to their friend. So they never speak. So that saved them some money. The story is as follows. Christopher Robin meets Winnie and the gang in the 100-acre wood. They're friends for a while, but Christopher Robin goes off to college, and during that time, the group goes fucking hog wild. They go insano style. Their minds break. They turn to madness and they become these ferocious killing machines for some reason because they felt abandoned by Christopher Robin. But Christopher Robin is now engaged and he wants to bring his fiancée into everything that was important in his life, which includes Winnie and the gang. So they visit the 100-acre wood looking for them, and his fiancée doesn't believe him. But then we get like Darman level acting throughout the entire film, but immediately it starts to shine because his wife is like, "You are so successful because you are creative. And even if these are imaginary friends, that business that you have made and you being as creative as you have been has led to you being one of the best people in the world, Christopher Robin. But I'm not sure if they're real." And Christopher's like, "But no, fiancé, these are real." And then sure enough, they eventually stumble upon the cabin, and then Piglet grabs a chain and strangles his wife till she dies. And then Christopher Robin gets cornered by Pooh and Piglet, and he drops what I believe to be one of the most iconic lines in horror movies now. He says, "Pooh, you've got to help me. Something's wrong with Piglet. He killed my wife." and then that's when it sinks in on Christopher Robin that they're all, off their gourd. So Pooh and Piglet start closing in on Christopher Robin as he's yelling and screaming. And he's saying, we were friends, but we were friends. We were friends. What happened to us being friends?" And then They kidnap him, and that's the intro. A fierce and fiery start to this one. And I'd like to mention that the two actors in the Winnie and Piglet costumes, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that they're like 80 years old. Because they move around so fucking slow. Especially Pooh Bear. Pooh Bear fee-fi-fo-fums around like he's carrying 1,000 pounds on each ankle. I thought for a second every time they moved, they slowed down the footage by like half. Like they moved at 0.5 speed. It really looks like they're riddled with arthritis. Every movement they make is extremely stiff. When they kill somebody, it's almost like animatronic to a certain degree. Like, it's so jarring. I would have expected them to be a little more limber since they're supposed to be like these crazy, agile, unstoppable killing machines. But my god, they are painfully slow and stiff. It's weird. But anyway, moving on. So that's the intro done. And then we get to our main characters. And I couldn't even tell you any of their names because it just genuinely wasn't important. They are actual just meat balloons for Winnie and Piglet to pop. So it's a group of girls that go to this cabin in the 100-acre wood for a vacation. And this is a no-technology vacation. They want to go off the grid, you know, like in fucking witness protection, basically. So they turn their phones off and everything is when they get to the cabin. But unfortunately, one of their friends was a little late, so when she was calling them to ask for directions, they didn't answer. So she pulled over outside, like next to the cabin a little far down the road, and was trying to get like them to answer. And as she's calling, Pooh Bear spots her. And this is very bad because Pooh Bear's got a taste for blood and he's gluttonous. So Pooh Bear starts chasing her down like this. The girl's screaming. She eventually makes it to some kind of like warehouse and takes cover underneath a wood chipper. You can see where this is going. As she's hiding, Pooh happens to find her. And I shit you not, I swear this is going to sound like I'm making up, but I'm not. Pooh grabs her and then rips her shirt off. And then her tits are flopping all over the place for a minute, and Pooh's like moving her around so her tits kind of jiggle. And then he starts slamming her head against the wood chipper till she dies, and then he puts her in the wood chipper to make a blood sundae out of. So it's shooting all of her blood and guts out of the wood chipper, and that's it. I don't understand what the point was in Pooh Bear stripping her nude, basically. Well, I guess not fully nude, making her topless. I don't really get it. I thought this was going to be like some kind of narrative plot point where like he sees her tits and its eyes just go like awooga or something to indicate that he's like a pervert, like truly just the most, you know, reprehensible menace of all time. But it played no role in anything because Pooh doesn't talk, he has no emotion, he has no real character, he just kills. So what the fuck was a point in just like having her tits all over the place for like 20 seconds? And that's another thing. All of these kills, the directors confused tension with just general time and dead silence and dead space. So when she's hiding, it is painfully long of her just sitting there and Pooh's feet by the door. It'll go on for like 45 seconds of nothing happening. It's not building tension, it's just overstaying its welcome and it's just dead space. It's fucking worthless. And that's for every single kill. The director really just thought like holding a still frame of something in the background is building tension, and it's just not. It was just really mind-numbingly boring, and it really lasted a long time. Like in the intro, when Christopher Robin was saying, but we were friends, and Piglet and Pooh were coming in, that scene was probably about 2 minutes of them standing there, slowly getting closer, as Christopher Robin repeated the same 5 lines over and over again, like it was an NPC malfunctioning in a video game. It was painful how long those scenes would drag. But anyway, moving on, so that girl got thrown in the wood chipper. Back at the cabin, one of the girls is an Instagram model, so she's in her downtime playing music in a hot tub, and while Pooh Bear is dispensing of like this corpse, this skeleton of one of their victims, he hears the music, so he looks around, and then he sees the hot tub. So as she's taking Instagram pictures, you can see Pooh in the background, and the girl notices that too, and she's like, oh, what the fuck is this? That's a weird looking creature back there. So then she turns around, literally knows Pooh is there and knows that it's some kind of fucked up abomination back there, and she's like, I know you're there, but you're not gonna ruin my vacation, or what was the line? You're not gonna ruin my hot tub, or something? I don't know, it was a terrible line, but she recognizes that there is a complete stranger in these fucking woods, this giant fucking animal recognizes that, and then just says, you're not gonna ruin my time, so she gets back in the hot tub, where she gets chloroformed by Piglet and Pooh Bear. So then they fucking hog tie her on the front porch and then steal one of their cars. and Piglet puts his foot on her while Pooh Bear slowly drives over her skull. And then you get a close-up of her skull slowly exploding, so her eye pops out at the camera, and then blood starts squirting, and they're using the worst CGI of all time for the blood squirting, and eventually her head just pops and blows up. The genre that this movie's in is torture porn, pretty much. Like, that is basically all it is. It's just Winnie and Piglet torturing and killing people. I even forgot to mention that Christopher Robin is being tortured by Pooh. He was hitting him with Eeyore's tail, just, like, fucking flogging him with it. And this is what I'm talking about with a lot of things they try they didn't even bother to follow through on. There's a moment where Christopher Robin's like, I know you're still good in there, Pooh. This isn't you. You killed my wife, but I know you're still good in there. And then Pooh has this moment where he, like, cries, and then he breaks some boxes, and then he looks at himself in the mirror, and then he goes back to hitting him with Eeyore's tail. And it's never explored again. Like, ever. At all. Like, there's just this brief moment of vulnerability, but then he goes right back to just being this two-dimensional killing machine. So now, back to the cabin. They blow up that girl's head with the car. It turns out all of the other girls, for some reason, spread out across the land, so two of them are by, like, a pond talking. Another two of them are literally, like, doing nothing. Just standing around doing nothing. But they hear their friend scream, and they all run back to the cabin. They see her corpse. They freak out. They go inside, and Pooh is written, "Get out" in blood on the window. So now they recognize they're being hunted, they're under attack, and they're trying to find things to defend themselves with. And then the main girl remembers that she brought a gun with her on this vacation. Her backstory is she had a stalker, so she's been a little scared of things, so she has a gun. And when she mentioned that, both Aaron and I thought it was going to be like a Glock or something, like a normal gun, you know, like a normal kind of gun that you see in movies. Well, it turns out the gun she brought is a fucking revolver. But not just any revolver. It's like a goddamn six-shooter straight out of Overwatch. Like, she was fucking McCree. She had this giant goddamn revolver. She came out here with that big iron on her hip. So she pulls out this massive revolver, a fucking 50 caliber hand cannon. And they're like, okay, now we can defend ourselves. But then they still split up. And so the girl with the revolver and her friend, they get into like a sniper's perch, and Pooh is just standing in the middle, like looking down, looking all confused, as they have like a clear shot on him, but they're not taking it for some reason. Then Pooh walks into the kitchen. So then we go to the other group of two girls that for some reason split off near the pool, and Piglet's over there, and they freak out. One of the girls falls in the pool. The other one, Piglet pushes, and she gets knocked unconscious. And then Piglet, fuck, it is so hard to describe how awful this is. Piglet is after the girl in the pool, and he has a chain and a sledgehammer, and he starts like slapping the chain against the pool water, trying to get her, and the girl's like moving backwards, like slowly in the pool as Piglet's hitting the water. And this goes on for like 2 minutes. It's terrible. And then eventually he's like, this isn't working, I'm gonna get the sledgehammer. And while he's getting the sledgehammer, the girl, instead of like getting out of the pool, like a normal logical decision, like getting out of the pool and running away while he's getting the sledgehammer, she instead like gets closer to him in the pool. And I thought this was going to be like a fight back moment where she's going to like grab the chain and yank him in and try and kill him. But no, she just gets closer to him as he gets the sledgehammer. Then he gets the sledgehammer and she starts backing up again in the pool, like slowly swimming her way back. And then Piglet hits her with the sledgehammer and kills her. And then the girl that got knocked out from the push, they take and chain up back at their camp. And Winnie the Pooh slaps her after eating some honey. So he's eating some honey. The girl wakes up. He notices she wakes up and he slaps her. And he slaps her again, and then he slaps her again, and then he slaps her again, and then he slaps her again. It goes on for like a fucking minute. That's what I'm talking about. All of these scenes last for so long, and it's so unnecessary. It does nothing. It doesn't make it more tense. It doesn't make it more brutal. It just makes it really fucking weird and uncomfortable. Anyway, that's another one of the vacationing girls dead. Don't even know her name. None of these characters had any level of depth to them whatsoever. The other two girls that have the revolver and her friend, they try and, you know, track down where her friend got taken. They eventually track it back to Winnie the Pooh and Piglet's hideout. And there's now another girl that's been captured and she's screaming. So they free her and she's been mauled by Piglet, so her face is all fucked up and it makes her mad. Then they free Christopher Robin as well at some point, who's still alive, just being tortured. So now they have Christopher Robin freed and this completely random girl that also happened to get tortured by Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. And the girl whose face is all messed up from Piglet grabs the gun and says, I'm going to make that bastard pay for this. So then she shoots a shot in order to lure Piglet out, and he comes out from a fucking trailer, and he's got his chain, and they're circling around a fire in what I expect they thought would be a cool action moment, like a cool action shot. So they're circling this fire. He's got a chain, she's got a gun, and she's ready to go fucking John Wick on him. But then she tries to shoot him, and it's out of bullets. It turns out the girl only packed a single bullet in that revolver, which leads me to believe that her plan for the vacation was to play fucking Russian roulette with her friends. Why would she only load a single bullet into the revolver? And that's not even the stupidest part about that scene. Because they freed that girl, they freed Christopher Robin, Piglet and Pooh had no idea that was going on. I think they both went to sleep for some reason. They could have all left. But when the girl took the revolver and said, I want to make Piglet pay, the other two girls, well, three because they had freed her friend, the other three girls just decided to watch. So they get in the closest proximity they can to this showdown, which happens to be a single keg, like an actual beer keg they hide behind, and they're watching it, like peeking over the side while this complete random woman has their gun and is about to shoot Piglet. They all just came over to watch. For no reason. They could have just left. They could have left, and they would have survived. They would have been fine. But they decided to be spectators here, and it's like an episode of Scooby-Doo. Like, they couldn't help it. They're just peeking over to watch it go down. So once it's clear that the girl's out of ammo, Winnie the Pooh comes up behind her, knocks her down, pours honey on her face, and Piglet eats her face off. And that's when Pooh notices that the three other girls happen to be behind that keg of beer watching. So then he's like coming at them like this. And two of the girls run away, but the other one hides and grabs a sledgehammer and ambushes Piglet. And she hits Piglet twice in order to get revenge for the friend that she killed. The other two girls are running through the forest, which is, I believe, miles away. Like, they ran miles, like, in a matter of seconds, and Pooh's following them like a goddamn robot. But after Piglet gets hit twice, he screams, and Pooh hears this miles away, and somehow Pooh instantly teleports back to the camp, and right after that girl delivers the killing blow on Piglet, Winnie the Pooh kills her by stabbing a machete through her throat and hanging her up on a post. Every character in this movie has super speed or like Dragon Ball Z level instant transmission because they're teleporting all over this place. They'll teleport from the cabin to the Pooh hideout to the woods, back to the cabin, all in a matter of actual seconds. It's fucking crazy. But anyway, now we're down to our last two survivors. Piglet's dead. Pooh's very upset about all of this. Sorry, just checking my notes, making sure I didn't miss anything. I'm skipping over some other shit. Like, it's so bafflingly fucking terrible. But anyway, the next important plot point is the two girls make it to a road, and there's a pickup truck of some goofy dudes in there. One of them comes out looking like the fucking crypt keeper, and they're like, what's wrong with you girls? You're not making any sense. What do you mean you're scared? Who are you scared of? And then Pooh's on the road, and they're like, you scared of this joker, this clown? All right, we'll get in the car. We'll take care of this. And they march up to him with baseball bats, beer bottles, and a crowbar. And they're like, hey, bub, what did you do to scare these girls? You're not a nice guy, are you? So then they start beating up Pooh Bear, and he's just tanking all of the shots. And then I wrote down how he kills them because it's so wild. So after it becomes clear that what they're doing is ineffective, Pooh slaps the entire side of someone's face off. Like, literally turns him into Harvey Dent, Two-Face, slaps the side of the guy's face off, which kills him, and then he karate chops another guy's arm off, and then curb stomps him. Then he karate slices another guy's throat open, killing him, and then the last guy, he summons a swarm of bees to kill. So Pooh Bear can control bees in this universe, I guess, and he uses that to kill that guy who runs away. Then the girls freak out, but they have a car now, and they try and get away in the car, but Pooh's latched onto the back, and then they brake real hard. Pooh flies off, but for some reason they broke so hard that their heads hit the dash and they pass out. So then one of the friends gets grabbed by Pooh, and then he rips her head off and then throws it on the windshield. And then our protagonist turns on the windshield wipers because the blood was gross, I guess, which is so stupid, so fucking dumb, because I guess she was still going to try and get away and couldn't see with their friend's head in the windshield. But she wasn't able to clean it off fast enough and start the car, so Pooh grabs her. And he's about to kill her, but then Christopher Robin comes speeding in another vehicle and hits Pooh, which stuns him, but it doesn't kill him. So then Pooh grabs that girl one more time, slits her throat in front of Christopher Robin, and then says the only line that Pooh and Piglet have, and he says, "You left us." and then after, kills the girl, slits her throat, and then just starts stabbing her a million times as Christopher Robin cries and runs away. Roll credits. I just summed up the whole movie for you. That is the whole movie. I am convinced that they were padding for time with all of those very long, drawn-out sections of, like, nothing happening. I think that was in order to fill time, in order to make, like, the bare minimum for a feature-length film, because this movie is fucking short. Like, way shorter than I would have ever expected. It's over in, like, a single blink of the eye. And everything that happens is so half-baked and terrible. All of it looks terrible. None of what they even attempted to do lands in even the singlest, slightest capacity. I thought this would be self-aware goofiness. It's not self-aware. It is goofy, but for all the wrong reasons, which almost makes it better. Like I said, it is enjoyably bad. It is fun bad. It's no Moonfall, unfortunately, but I did enjoy my time watching it. It was something special. Like, oh bother. I tell you, this one was a super stinker. And I just had to come home and vent about it and talk about it because holy shit. It has a 5% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I actually agree with. It's very rare I agree with Rotten Tomatoes scores. That one's right on the money. 5% sounds about right. The audience score of 51%, though, I can't understand because it is enjoyably shit. Like, it is a fun, bad movie. It's something wild. That's about it. So, yeah. Not too long ago, Winnie the Pooh entered the public domain, meaning anyone's welcome to use him and the characters for their own work as long as it's somewhat original. The only character that still remains forbidden is Tigger. They're keeping that copyright under lock and key, but every other beloved character in the 100-acre wood you're welcome to go hog wild with. You can make your own Winnie the Pooh cinematic universe if you'd so choose. I absolutely love the public domain. Sometimes you get decent stuff out of it, but 9 times out of 10, something going to the public domain leads to the absolute most abominable, revolting creations humanity is capable of producing. And I think it's just delightful. And we're already seeing this effect in full force because there's a new Winnie the Pooh horror movie on the horizon called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Let's go ahead and check out the trailer here. The plot, I think, is outstanding. Seems like something that'd be written by Stephen King himself. Christopher Robin has abandoned Pooh and the gang, and they're upset. So now they're coming for skulls. They've gone rabid. So one thing you'll probably immediately pick up on is the budget looks like it was $40. That's kind of standard for works that use public domain for some reason. You never really see huge budget works that borrow from the public domain, at least not as like the core focus. But that doesn't matter. You see, there's always a certain charm to these things.
We need to go. Laura's dead. There's someone else outside.
Now, there's no CGI here. This is all practical effects, if you can believe it. This is a real costume and someone underneath it, but it looks so good you probably thought it really was the actual Winnie the Pooh come to life. I love the costume design here. This seems like something they found in a Party City dumpster that vaguely resembled Winnie the Pooh and then hatched the idea for a horror movie centered around it.
What was that?
Winnie the Pooh out here looking like the original Sonic the Hedgehog design from the movie. It actually kind of reminds me of the SpongeBob porn parody, SpongeNob Square Nuts. Now, you know me, I'm a real positive Patty, so I don't like to be the one to nitpick things, but if I was to critique this masterpiece here, I would say that my biggest problem with it is that it doesn't really look like Winnie the Pooh and the crew hunting down and murdering people. It just seems like people found things that vaguely resembled Winnie the Pooh's team, and they're dressing up in costume and killing people at the house. So it loses the effect of Winnie the Pooh, like the actual Pooh Bear, killing people, and just becomes like, oh, it's someone dressing up like him. So it's not as cool, I don't think. It probably would have been better if they just did shitty CGI or even like hand puppets. You know, that could be kind of wild. Claymation, even. But just having like regular looking like human bodies with a Winnie the Pooh mask It's not really the same thing as like Winnie the Pooh's no longer addicted to honey. Now he's addicted to blood and cum, you know? It loses all of that mystique. I realize I'm not doing a great job of explaining what I mean. I just sound like someone that believes Winnie the Pooh is real. What I'm trying to say is, all they're using is a mask, right? Like, the body is still very human-like. Like, they just have normal clothes on. Like, Piglet's wearing a fucking trench coat, you know? He just looks like some edgelord from a video game, but he has a pig mask on. You know, nothing tells me that that's Piglet. I wouldn't see this trailer and immediately think it's Winnie the Pooh and Piglet. I'd think, oh, it's just a normal slasher movie and they're using a pig in bear mask. They should have done at least the bare minimum of giving Piglet, like, little hooves, you know, instead of just, like, normal hands. Because, like, when they have the sledgehammer or the axe, whatever it is, like, it's just normal hands. He's got gloves on. He's got fucking 5 fingers and gloves on. You know, instead of, like, little piggy stuff. You know, little piggy appendages. So, again, it just feels like it's normal people and wearing masks. It doesn't feel like it's fucking Winnie the Pooh's team, you know, that's come together to purge. And I feel like that's what they should have gone for.
Be friends, why are you doing this, please? I would have never left, I swear, I swear.
Yeah, overall, I know this movie's gonna be a big stinker, but I can't wait for it, because I'm thinking it's going to be, like, enjoyably bad. It looks like it's made with a high level of self-awareness that they know that it's fucking stupid, but they're fully embracing it, so I can respect that. I, again, just wish they had sold the idea that it's Winnie the Pooh and his friends a bit more, instead of just having it be people with Winnie the Pooh cheap costumes from Walmart. You know, there's definitely a better way of doing it, I think. But I'll try and remain somewhat optimistic here. Winnie the Pooh is a property that's awfully close to home for me. I, of course, used to watch the cartoon. I even had a couple of the games. I had a lot of Winnie the Pooh merch, so I was a big Pooh Bear fan. And I'd love to see him really make the leap into the big screen in a big way. A way that I haven't seen him before, you know? It's time Winnie the Pooh adapt. Maybe they make this a really deep plot, like something really interesting, a compelling narrative where they ran out of honey in the 100-Acre Wood, and honey was the only thing that, like, calmed the mind of Pooh. Like, Pooh entered the 100-Acre Wood as a serial killer, piling up mangled corpses for years, like one of the biggest war criminals this planet's ever seen. But once he found that special honey in the 100-Acre Wood, it calmed him down, you know, simmered him down, and, you know, he became a really nice guy. But now that they're out of honey, he's gone back to those primal instincts, and he's back killing again. There's really just a lot they could do here. Maybe Christopher Robin revisit the 100-Acre Woods after Winnie the Pooh's killed his wife and his friends at the house, and he's trying to figure out, how do I beat this manic, fucking bloodthirsty demon? And that's when Eeyore falls out of a tree. He's missing all of his limbs, eyes popped out of the socket, there's blood, viscera everywhere, he's got tears in his eyes, and he says, as he's crawling his way there with his one limb, using it like a peg leg, he says, "Christopher, the only thing to stop Pooh is Pooh himself." And that's when it connects in Christopher's mind. The neurons start firing. He's like, the honey. That's what Pooh loved the most. So then Christopher Robin has to biologically engineer new honey and then beat Pooh with it. I don't know. There's just plenty they could do besides just use cheap fucking costumes and sledgehammers in a house, right? Like, they could get a lot more creative with it, and I hope they somehow do, but this trailer just seems like the most generic, low-budget slasher ever invented, but with Winnie the Pooh's mask. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what we're going to get, something that just capitalizes off the shock of Winnie the Pooh being a killer, so just trying to use it as like a little marketing thing, like, here's a pretty standard horror movie gore fest, but look, it's Winnie the Pooh. Give us some money. And I'm sure they will be profitable, because if they sell more than 10 tickets, I'm sure they made back their budget. And I'm going to be one of the people watching this movie. So, you know, I'm going to give it a try. I love to see shit enter the public domain, especially something as influential as Winnie the Pooh. This is a huge one, so I'm excited to see the first use of it here, and hopefully it's a fun, bad movie instead of just, like, a boring one. Or maybe I'll be completely surprised and it's an amazing movie. We'll have to wait and see, but anyway, I just wanted to talk about it a little bit because it's pretty silly. That's about it. So, yeah. Without a doubt, the movie I just watched is the weirdest film of the year in the best possible way. It's called The Substance, and I think it's flown under a lot of people's radar because this hasn't generated nearly as much buzz as it deserves. I only heard about it because during streams, people were telling me I need to go see it. It's an incredible body horror movie. So right away, I went in this with pretty high expectations with all of the glaze it was getting. This shit was getting basted like a Thanksgiving turkey here in compliments. So I had high expectations of this film. I knew nothing about it going in, didn't even know the concept of it. I was blown away. I thought it was extraordinary. It's super self-aware in its campiness. So the concept of the film is a woman who's getting older is really struggling to come to terms with not being like the beauty standard, being the beauty girl, because she was a TV star for the longest time and she was used to everybody just suckling farts out her butt. And as she was getting older, people stopped doing that. Her ratings were starting to drop and she was really struggling to come to terms with that. So she gets this opportunity to try something called The Substance, which promises to bring a better version of herself forward. Prettier, younger, this and that, the whole kit and caboodle. Now, while this idea has been explored numerous times, the pursuit of perfection, unrealistic beauty standards, and all kinds of things that this movie thematically explores, it has never been tackled in a way that The Substance has done. It is so good. And I really think it's elevated by how self-aware it is. Very clearly, there's a lot of Cronenberg influence on a lot of what you see and a lot of what you experience with this movie, and I love it. It was so refreshing, it was gross, it was yucky, and I'll get into the nitty-gritty of it for sure, but I really do think this was a pretty special film, but not everyone is going to like it. We went with a pretty large group, and I'd say 60% loved it, and the other 40% were repulsed by it. They hated it. Drew was livid. There was steam coming out of his ears. He hated sitting through this movie so much. He wanted to be neuralized by the Men in Black just to get it out of his mind because he thought it was just that trash. And I feel like that's going to be an experience for a lot of people. There are going to be people that can really appreciate it and those that are just going to be super put off by it. I guess another thing worth mentioning that some of the people that hated it pointed out is that probably a good like 20% of this movie is spent naked. So there's a lot of titty and ass and like close-up of booby and ass. Like sometimes it came out of nowhere like a jump scare with bang, honkers. And there is a lot of that for sure. I don't think it's like needless nudity or something. When it's there, there's a reason for it, but there is a lot of it there that maybe some people might find to be like excessive, because there were moments where it was like actually like softcore porn to a certain extent, especially because one of the big things is, you know, I'm not going to get into that because I think that's probably too big of a spoiler, but the sexuality of things does play a role in the actual plot of it all. But me personally, I was smiling ear to ear from start to finish like there was someone tickling my armpits. It had me in such a good mood. Like it was so fun. It was silly in all of the right ways and at all of the right moments. It was serious at all of the right moments, and the body horror is so good. Typically when something tries to be body horror in 2024, you know, the modern age, they just do the laziest, cheapest shit ever where it's like CGI blood coming out of orifices and maybe like an eye poke or something. This film, it goes hog wild. It was like watching a live action Meat Canyon film. I thought it was so good. And it also does play around with the blood too. There is like eruptions of blood. There's tons of guts and gore and everything. But that's not the bread and butter. This whole film, from the way it's filmed to what it presents you with for like the monster creature design, is stellar. I love how everything in this film feels like it's under a microscope. So even something as simple as, you know, the Hollywood big shot smoking a cigarette, it's super zoomed in on the cigarette and like his pores, and he's like got saliva dripping out of his mouth while he's smoking it. He's eating some prawns and it's like really yucky sounds, like the worst ASMR ever. And you just sit there and witness all the grossness of it. Even when it's not body horror, it's just filmed in a way that just puts you on edge effectively. And I just thought it was great. Now, like I said, a lot of people hype this movie up saying that it's one of the better body horror films and like the best horror movie of the year. And I agree, it is definitely up there. And interestingly enough, there was a sizable chunk of people that thought I'd really appreciate it because it's eerily similar to a concept that I wrote about years ago. I had an idea for a short story that I put a tweet out about like 6 or 7 years ago, and I had even told a piece of that short story on our album, The Evolution of Tears, for the Gentle Min, just kind of as like a silly little track, so we put it to music, and it was just like a short summation of the story. And fundamentally what it was just this dumb dog shit idea I had, where a woman achieves immortality through birthing a clone of herself. So she gets to her octogenarian era, she's senile, she's about to buy the farm, but before she dies, she spontaneously gets pregnant and births an exact copy of her younger self with all of her current self's memories. And in the substance, it's actually kind of similar. So when she gets the substance, she collapses, her back splits open, and she spawns a young version of herself. So the big thing is, she is the Matrix, and this new person, this new being, is actually her. You are one, but it is two separate people, the old you and the new you. And the thing is, you have to keep switching bodies every 7 days in order to not have any like bad side effects from it. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but all of this I'm pretty sure is going to be in the trailers because it's the entire premise of the film. Now, if you've got your thinking caps on and you're using all the neurons up here, you're going to start to connect dots that my short story and the substance, they share some similarities. Now, I'm not necessarily going to be knocking on their door with a lawyer with some papers drafted or anything, because obviously my short story did not inspire this in any way, shape, or form, and they are drastically different. But I couldn't help but actually laugh once the birthing of the younger version of herself happened, which was a really good scene, by the way. But I couldn't help but laugh because I immediately drew that connection of, oh, this is like actually my short story that I'm watching right here, this one moment. Because that is fundamentally what I was writing about for it, in a much worse, stupider way. It's done significantly better in this film, but I just thought that was so interesting that it was like even remotely similar at any stage. So I just wanted to point that out. I'm not asking for royalties or anything, I just wanted to put that out there. Yeah, I just thought this movie slapped. As I mentioned, I think it is a very self-aware film in a way you don't really see that often. It's campy in the best ways, and let me give you an example. Dennis Quaid. Dennis Quaid plays this Hollywood guy. He has the television station that our main character was once the star of, and now the younger version of herself is now the star. Of course, no one knows these are the same person or anything. Like, to everyone else, they're two separate people. And he's a huge scumbag. He's a pervert. He's a bad weirdo. He's a degenerate. And Dennis Quaid leans into the idea of, like, Hollywood sleazeball so well. So, for example, when he's, like, just traversing the world, he's in these, like, steel-toed boots. When he, like, if he was walking down the hallway in any scene, it sounded like Sonny from iRobot jogging. Like, it just sounded like metal clanking against metal every time he made a move. And the way he moved is like Vince McMahon. So he's always doing this. So every time he's walking, he's hitting him with some of this right here. And he, like, his mannerisms are so silly. So, like, towards the end where he's like, pretty girls should always smile. And then he starts walking away doing this. Like, it's so over the top, but not in a way where I was like, damn, that's cringe. Like, he's doing too much. It was like, that's perfect. Like, that's so good. It had me laughing, which I'm pretty sure was the idea with it. And it's not just him, I just think he was the best shining example of it. They'd introduce characters sometimes, like Fred, and it's just so in your face, but not in a way where it feels dumb. Like, it just feels like, oh, they're in on this being a joke, and it's supposed to be campy. But I will say, there were moments where I think they expected the audience to be stupider. So, like, a big reveal, they did a subtle moment where it reveals it, and you're like, oh, I'm picking up on that. I see what they're saying with that. That's what that means. And then, once you have that realization, the movie immediately beats you over the fucking head with a hammer with what it is. They take all the subtlety away with, like, a flashback or showing you something, like, you know, behind the curtain with, this is what it is. This is it right here. Showing you, telling you, instead of just having any level of trust in the audience to piece it together themselves with what you've shown them. So that was a little upsetting because that happened a couple of times, and I just thought it was unnecessary in a film like this. Like, you set it up well, and you had a good execution of, like, this subtle reveal. I don't think they needed to take the extra, like, 5 minutes to give you, like, the monologue, and this is what it means, and this is why I did it, and this is who I am. I just thought that was a little much. But I just thought the film was super good. I love the monsters. When the monster stuff starts happening, again, not getting into spoilers, I thought they crushed it with the design. I thought it looked great. It did a good job of being unsettling and gross. People in the theater were audibly like recoiling, going like, oh no, you know, actually emoting during a film, which I have not heard in so long in a movie theater. So I think it accomplished its goal. And it's the perfect amount of weird. Like, one of the monsters pukes out a whole titty. Like, it actually pukes out a breast, a single boobie. It just plops onto the ground, a disembodied tit. It's like, whoa, wow, that was interesting, you know. I just think The Substance is a pretty special film. I thought they crushed it. I really did. But again, I think there's going to be a ton of people who hate it. This is not a film I think that's for everyone. It is a weird movie, and I think you need to go in there ready to accept that it's like cartoonishly over the top. And once you do accept that, I think you're going to have a ton of fun watching it. So yeah, that's really about it. So yeah. If you call yourself a fan of The Nun, I'll call you a liar. Find me one person in the world who actually thinks The Nun is a good horror movie, and I'll find you a deceiver, a teller of fibs. I just don't think it's possible that there is anyone out there on this entire space rock that thinks The Nun was an actually good movie. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of arguments you can make that it's an entertaining one, like a fun, bad, enjoyable movie. I would agree with you there to a certain extent. But anyone that would actually think that the movie was good enough to deserve a sequel, I just can't imagine that being the case. I don't think there's a such thing as fans of The Nun. There's probably more fans of eating paint chips than that movie. And yet somehow, the Hollywood soulless suits, these zombie husks that control the pipeline of big budget movies, deemed this franchise worth a new entry. So we got The Nun 2 somehow. I just came back from watching it because I'm a sucker for bad horror films, and I thought maybe this one stood a better chance of being fun bad than the previous one, which I wasn't a huge enjoyer of, even as a like so bad it's good flick. I gave that puppy a 25% on the moist meter, so the sequel had some big shoes to fill. And unfortunately, the only thing that was filled was my water when I finished drinking all of it to keep myself awake. Every single scene in this film, except for maybe one or two, is a scene that they have literally used 1,000 times by now. In their own franchise, in the Conjuring movies, in the Annabelle movies, every scene in The Nun 2, I'm pretty sure is copy and pasted with a different skin for this film. They're not even trying. Like, there's not even an iota of effort put into this. I'll get my only compliments out of the way right now. There are two scenes that stood out to me as, like, actually being creative. And one of them was about the main character, Irene, whom you'll remember from the first film, having visions. And the visions in this film work like Genjutsu in Naruto. So, fucking Itachi here traps her in a Genjutsu, and she's seeing the nun on a billboard. There's crows flying by. It's actually very much like Itachi. Maybe that's who the demon is. And so she's looking at this board that has all of these magazines on it. Wind blows in, it starts flipping the magazines around, and the magazines flip to a bunch of different pages that eventually form something that resembles the nun. And then she jolts her arm out and strangles Irene. And it was pretty cool. I was like, that's very interesting. And the jump scare was pretty effective. Not that jump scares are something to be proud of, per se, but if you're going to do them, at least do them well. You know, a jump scare is basically just like a quick, loud noise in the middle of quiet in order to trigger that brief little startle sensation, because our caveman brains are hardwired that way. It's the best comparison, and the one that always gets made, is a comedian going out into the crowd and tickling someone and calling it good comedy. It's just cheap for horror films, but if you're going to include jump scares, make sure that they're done well. And that one was executed decently. And then the only other scene that I thought was cool was actually the very first scene. It's in a big church, and then it ends with someone getting lit on fire. So the priest just gets cremated after encountering the nun. And it was very, like, well done. Like, that whole sequence leading up to that, I actually thought was kind of a banger. and then it never reaches that level of quality again. It's like they put all of their effort into the intro and then that one scene with the magazines and nowhere else. Now that I've got all the compliments out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into the rest. I am super tired of every single story in mainstream horror films being the exact same fucking thing. I'm going to get into spoilers. I don't think anyone cares about the narrative of The Nun 2. This isn't exactly something that people are going to for a deep, intricate lore, I don't think. It does loosely tie into the Conjuring universe, but only because there's a post-credit scene that works like the Avengers, where the Warrens get a phone call and he's like, "How can I help you?" "I'm on it." That's the only tie-in. Other than that, there is nothing here that even connects it. So anyway, the film's narrative is the exact same plot to about 5,000 other horror films, like almost to a T. I'm confident now that these are being written by AI, because it's just taking the same DNA of everything else and doing nothing different with it, not even a unique spin. And like all other horror movies that have come before it, if you stop and think about the plot to this for even just 2 seconds, the entire movie falls apart. Let me explain how that works in this film. So, the first scene that I mentioned, the one that I like, yeah, the nun lights that priest on fire, literally just burns him alive with no effort at all. And then never does it again. Falls into the same tropey horror garbage where once the demon is doing what they want to do, all of a sudden the extent of its power is opening and closing doors, or making a scary face appear to spook somebody, or moving some chairs around, or something like that. It's just, it becomes so weak, even though, like, at the very beginning of this film, which in real world time of the movie, well, that's the opposite of real world time, in movie time, was only like a month ago, we saw it light someone on fire effortlessly. And now all of a sudden, all it can do is lightly push things around. It has about as much force as a light breeze in the summertime wind. Like, how? Like, what could have easily happened is the demon goes to the place it wants to go, lights everybody on fire, kills them instantly, and then gets what it wants. And what does it want? It wants an ancient artifact. So, the demon was able to find where the ancient artifact was, and it infiltrates a school. And at the school, it starts scaring kids. For no reason, really. Just starts startling children, and nothing else. And before doing that, it had actually just snapped the neck of a woman who gave a delivery to where the demon was staying. So the demon is still perfectly capable of killing people, yet for some reason when it comes to that school, with the main objective in that school, it decides not to kill anyone. Why? It easily can. It just demonstrated that multiple times, like, and now all of a sudden it's a pacifist? It just doesn't make any sense. There's no explanation for why the demon doesn't just kill everyone at that school and then get the artifact, because it knows it's there. It could just get it once everyone's gone. The only argument I can see for why it wouldn't want to do that is it doesn't know exactly where that artifact is, so it's trying to lead people on a wild goose chase to accidentally locate it. But I think that's kind of a weak theory, and it's one I'm just making up to try and justify bad writing here. But let's assume that is the reason. It's still fucking stupid, because if no one's around, there's no one to foil their plans. In every single horror movie, it seems like the bad entity, the bad thing, is always more than willing to just let everyone in the film stop it. Like, it wants to be stopped. It has a humiliation fetish, and it wants to be beaten for some reason. Because it just lets everyone solve the mystery and do the only thing that can defeat it. In fact, sometimes it just leads them to the thing that can beat it. For no reason. Like, why? Why? So, the demon is at the school now. It's incognito, and Irene from the first film, as well as a new character, are working together to try and track down the demon because the Vatican has been alerted to its presence, that it's back. It wasn't actually defeated in the previous film. The Vatican in this movie works like the Men in Black. They have like this really deep network of like intel and operatives that keep everyone up to date on demon activity. So they get the scoop, they figure out what the demon wants and where it is, and they go to the place. I'm just really speedrunning through all of this because most of the film is spent with just really lame, cheap jump scares and a complete absence of suspense or any real reason for what's unfolding. It's just the demon goofing around, scaring children at a school. That's it. So the good guys get to the school, they confront the demon directly, and the demon, for some reason, just starts walking off after they figure out what it's there for. And keep in mind, this demon has shown that it can basically teleport and be anywhere it wants. But at the end of the film, all of a sudden, all it can do is walk or jog a little bit very slowly, which is another trope in horror films where for the entire movie, the demon can be everywhere. And now all of a sudden at the end, all it can do is walk at the speed of like an 85-year-old woman. Doesn't make any sense, but that's exactly what happens here. And the good characters are trying to stop it, and the demon punches one of them, which sends her flying against some glass, and then force pushes another one and keeps walking. Why not just kill them? The demon has superhuman strength. That punch sent her flying. Could have easily killed her, finished the job. Like, there was no reason the demon wouldn't do that. And the force push, again, could have easily just killed her instead. But makes the decision not to. They catch up to the demon after getting pushed away. They all together get the artifact, and it's a big struggle between the demon and the humans. Even though I don't know how that can even be a contest, because the demon has superpowers. It could just push them away, but it scarcely uses that, and when it does, it's like a very light push. So they engage in this struggle over the artifact, and eventually the demon starts slamming one of the girls' heads onto the concrete, and I was like, oh, he's about to kill her. And then doesn't. After slamming her head on the concrete, the demon lifts her up in a chokehold, like he's about to perform a cane chokeslam. And then one of the students grabs the artifact and runs away, and the demon looks, sees the girl running away, and for some reason just lightly drops the main character. When earlier in the film, he did something similar with a complete stranger and snapped her neck effortlessly. He could have easily done that to the main character and would have solved every single one of the demon's problems. Like, there would be no one left to stop him. But inexplicably just lets her go. And also, I forgot to mention this, a goat man gets summoned, which was actually kind of hype. This is another compliment, the goat man. I'm a huge fan of cryptids, and they legitimately made goat man here. And he chases people around on all four. It's really silly, and it made me giggle. So I did appreciate the goat being in here. That was cool. Actually looked like fucking Mr. Tumnus out of Narnia. It was a great character. So the goat's chasing some of the little children while one of the other nuns is there trying to protect them. And then the main nun, main character, and one of the other children are struggling over the artifact to defeat the bad demon nun. And it ends in an anticlimactic showdown where the demon finally, once again, uses the light someone on fire move, but instead of just immediately lighting up the main character in flames, slowly starts like a small fire on like her bottoms, which slowly goes up instead of just immediately lighting them entirely on fire like we saw the demon do at the beginning, which gives the girl just enough time to remember that her mother, whom she had mentioned a little earlier in the film, had superpowers basically, and thus the main character has the superpowers. And an explosion of wine happens, which is changed into the blood of Christ, and it melts the demon, and the day is saved. I've summed up the majority of the film there. I left out a couple of details, of course, but it's so fucking dumb. It's so dumb. It's insultingly stupid. There's not even really that many fun, bad moments in here. It's just such a snooze fest because it's every single horror movie trope ever rolled into this film. Unapologetically. Like, if you're going to do that, at least get creative when it comes to your jump scares and it actually builds some suspense and do something fun there. It doesn't even try outside of a couple of scenes. Damn it. So yeah, I don't know why they even bothered making a sequel to The Nun. The first one was terrible, and this one I'm actually going to say is a little better. Like, objectively speaking, I think this movie is a little bit better than the first one, but it doesn't make it enjoyable. Like, it's just slightly better than a piece of shit. It's like a less stinky piece of shit. But yeah, I just wanted to rant about this movie a little bit because I am still shocked that it even got a sequel in the first place. Yeah, hopefully the next Conjuring movie's good. We'll see. But anyway, that's about it. See ya. What's more brave, running into a burning building to save the life of a family trapped inside? Or offering a controversial take on a beloved horror movie that just released. I think both are equally as brave, but there's only one that I'm courageous enough to actually do. And that's giving a horror movie that has the entire film world going gushing grannies mode over it a less than perfect score. Less than 100%, which is controversial, it seems. Longlegs. I already know me name-dropping this film and stating that I'm giving it a less than perfect score has probably already had a few people spitting out their Budweiser while cracking their knuckles, turning to their keyboard going, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." But I want to be clear up front, I think it's a good movie. But I don't think it's anything special. I think it is dreadfully overhyped. I went into it with really high expectations because all the reviews, it had like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and everyone that I was reading from was saying things like, "Scariest movie humanity's ever produced. This one's gonna keep you awake for the rest of your life because you won't be able to think about anything besides how frightening this film was. It's gonna have you looking over both shoulders anytime you pass a dark corner." Like crazy praise, which is rare for a horror movie. So, I saw it last night, and I gave a little pseudo moist meter on stream last night. I'm going to play that for you here, but be warned, it's a bit of a hot take because it seems like not many people feel the same way I do about it. Now, I already know there's plenty of people that aren't actually going to bother hearing what I have to say about the movie. You've already made your minds up about me that I'm some brainless Cro-Magnon that just couldn't understand Longlegs, which is why I wasn't scared by it. I promise you that's not the case, because Longlegs itself is a film that I feel like you can't walk away without understanding at least the majority of it, because the very end of the movie drills into you exactly what it was all about and what was happening. So it's not exactly like the subtlety was lost on me. I appreciate the cinematography. The cinematography does so much heavy lifting in this film. It's actually beautifully shot. The performances are great, but it really felt like a ton of other horror movies I've seen with much prettier packaging around it. Especially, I'm not going to get into spoilers. This is completely spoiler-free. I want to make that clear up front. And also, I already know there's other people that'll use some other kind of explanation for why I didn't like it. Oh, Charlie only likes horror movies with jump scares, which is a crazy take, considering I hate most modern horror films. I think the vast majority are irredeemable dog shit, and a lot of that is because they have an over-reliance on jump scares. My favorite horror movie is Hereditary, and by all accounts, that movie is a slow burn. It's an unrelenting, eerie, tension-building film, and the jump scares don't really come in until like the last 10 minutes, which is my least favorite part of the film because it kind of just devolved into normal horror cliches in like a 10-minute montage. They just speed run every jump scare ever, which I thought was kind of silly. But I still think Hereditary is a horror movie masterpiece. So the pacing of the film being slower in Longlegs, I actually think is a very big positive thing. So that's definitely not any kind of complaint I have, and I hope no one gets that twisted. Anyway, I get into more specifics on stream, again, while avoiding spoilers, but I kind of just vomit out my thoughts a little bit more there, so you can really take in this hot take for you. I'm gonna give you a little live moist meter on Longlegs here. I was extremely excited for this movie. It had so much hype, like all the headlines were, "This is the scariest movie ever, you won't be able to sleep without a nightlight on, hope you got your mom to give you some warm milk on standby after seeing this one, because it's gonna scar you." It's the scariest movie in decades, certified masterpiece, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and all the trailers looked amazing. So it came out today, and I just got back from it. Overhyped. I'm sorry to tell you, it very overhyped. I don't know what the marketing budget was, but they must have really sold it in a big way to the critics. Because it is good, like it's not bad by any means. It's better than most horror movies, but that's like, you know, that's not a very high bar. Most horror movies are irredeemable slop. But it is better than most. But it's just, I don't know, it's not special. And I went into it expecting something like Hereditary level, where I'm like, I haven't seen anything like this. This is genuinely unnerving stuff. And the movie's shot beautifully, the acting's great, the story is good. It's just not scary. Like, really at all. I see tier 1 12-bit. Pretty much all of the scares are the exact scares that we've seen a million times in every other horror movie ever. They're just packaged a little bit better. Nicolas Cage was great. Everyone was great in it, but I don't think, like, a good performance can save a not scary horror movie. Like, there's a couple scenes that do a good job of building tension, but the tension never goes anywhere. They just let it peter out. So you'll have, like, a really long scene. It's like, oh, this is going to build to something, like, crazy. There's going to be something really, you know, eerie about this. And then it just slowly fades. I don't know, it just didn't, it never got under my skin. I never felt like on the edge of my seat or scared, you know, chattering fingernails on my teeth or anything. It just, I just didn't think it was all that great. It's good, but it's not great. Why did they hype up what he looks like so much? Because Nicolas Cage looks like a super weirdo in the film. And he looks weird, but he doesn't even look that much different than... You know what he looks like in this movie? He looks like the grandfather from Holes in the flashback scene with Kate Bartlow, where she's like, I'm tired of this, Grandpa, and he goes, that's too damn bad! That's what Nicolas Cage looks like here. It's not, like, it's nothing crazy. He looks exactly like this guy. So he just, like, progressively gets more and more like this guy as the movie goes on with longer hair. This movie also has a really lackluster ending because they treat the audience like they were too stupid to piece together what was happening throughout the whole movie. So there's like a montage that explains all of it and just beats you over the head with it. It's not bad. Please don't misunderstand me. Like I said, this is better than like 90% of horror movies that come out. But it is not the masterpiece that I thought it would be. Like, I was ready to like expect another Hereditary, which I guess is unrealistic. But it really wasn't close. So you just set your expectations a little high? Yeah, I think it's part of that. I definitely think that's part of it. And I think the hype around the movie does it a huge disservice once you actually see it. Because it's not the scariest movie ever made or anything. But it is a good movie. Why don't you like the ending of Hereditary? I think it's so unique. I think it's the opposite. The problem with Hereditary's ending to me is that it's not unique. The rest of the movie was. The final 10 minutes is just every jump scare ever shoehorned into a 10-minute speed run. The mom, like, banging her head on the attic. Then, like, a bunch of people coming out going, boo! 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 Like, the theater started laughing when the coat, or whatever it was, like, flew across the room. Like, it was so silly. So good as a film, but not scary, right? Yeah. That's kind of how I'd classify it. I think for certain people it will be unnerving, depending on how you respond to the themes. So, it just wasn't one that I personally found to be frightening. I have to know what Longlegs is about. I'm not going to spoil it. Like I said, I think it's probably best to go in not knowing what it's about, because the trailers do a good job of keeping that a mystery. So, I won't ruin that. What would I give Longlegs? If I was to put Longlegs on the moist meter, I'd probably give it like a comfortable 75%. Like, it's good, like I said. That's probably where I'd land. Somewhere in there. I don't remember if I mentioned this on stream, but I watched Sinister the other night because it's one of those, like, horror movies that everyone gives a lot of flowers to. They're like, Sinister really is one of the best. And it's one of them that I hadn't seen before. So I watched Sinister for the first time. And the movie's pretty dog shit for the most part. But what it does really, really well is when it's going through the old home movies, the sound design is great. Like, the sound really fucking sells some of it. And then when it gets out of the sound, like when it gets out of the tapes, they just have like the really silly stuff with the guy who just goes up to the camera and does this. So, dog shit's being really harsh for no reason. It's fine, but it's not like, I would never say it's one of the best. I'm going to show you an image, and I want you to tell me how it makes you feel. What does it say to you? Now, I don't want to scare you, this isn't meant to be frightening, but it will be a bit distressing. Think of it like a therapy session, and this is a Rorschach. You ready? Here it is. BuzzFeed Studios jump scare. Don't worry, it's gone now, it can't hurt you anymore. I know that seeing BuzzFeed Studios elicits a feeling of sadness and despair. I honestly didn't even know BuzzFeed was still around. I thought we had eradicated that plague many years ago, but I guess it's still got a heartbeat, no matter how faint. And they're going all in on this horror movie called Dear David, which is based on a Twitter thread. I shit you not. That is the most BuzzFeed shit imaginable. They're making a Twitter thread horror movie. A stunning, brave, and bold twist on the horror genre here. Innovation at its finest, and that's what BuzzFeed is known for. I really can't wait to see what's next for the creative minds at the BuzzFeed Studios basement. I want to see what else they'll cook up in that cursed kitchen. Perhaps a Netflix original thriller about a bubbly blogger who's now facing her worst nightmare when she goes to Starbucks and was served a grande instead of a venti. Fucking teeth chattering. Chills, I tell you, chills. BuzzFeed Studios, they're aiming for the fences. They're swinging for a big home run, and goddammit, I think they might just hit it. This trailer for Dear David is impressively awful. Before getting into the trailer itself, I'll just go ahead and show you what it's based on. It's from this thread in 2017 where a comic artist named Adam was documenting a series of hauntings he was experiencing from a dead child named David. And this is the police sketch of David, I guess. It looks like something out of Ed, Edd n Eddy, but this was meant to be taken seriously. He tried to play it off as a very real thing, even though it's very clearly just a load of baloney, just some fish paste to have a bit of fun. But there were tons of people that were really, like, encapsulated. They were hooked. They tuned in every day for the latest update from Adam on David. You know, is David still trying to kill you? What's David up to? Is he out there playing with Hot Wheels again in the middle of the night? Oh my god, David's a menace! We gotta fucking kill David quickly! That kind of shit. Like, they were really invested in the story. And now BuzzFeed is doing what they do best. Striking while the iron is completely cold and everyone has forgotten about it. Not the most timely execution here. This is 6 fucking years too late. The whole world doesn't remember this thing, and now BuzzFeed for some reason is trying to parade its corpse around to make money off of it. In a very pitiful attempt at that. They chose something that was only popular on Twitter 6 years ago, and only lasted for a handful of days, really. And they're like, yep, that's the one. That's our horror movie magnum opus. Dear David, let's run it. Like, I just can't even believe it. Why even bother? You're already so late to it. If this had come out in, like, 2018, maybe, then you might have a chance of getting a couple ticket sales. But this movie, Dear David, might legitimately sell 0 tickets. It's just incredible how out of touch BuzzFeed is. This is a film that wouldn't even be seen by family and friends because it looks so awful and uninteresting on a concept that no one cares about from a fucking Twitter thread. And it's integral to the film itself, too. Twitter plays a large role in the trailer. Like, that is so embarrassing. No one wants to go watch that. Like, if you went to the BuzzFeed office right now, I'm very curious what you would find. Maybe it looked like a dungeon where, like, there's only one light on. It's like a single light bulb dangling from a string. And, like, maybe 3 people on a computer still writing quizzes. What Harry Potter character are you? What does your favorite sex position say about your favorite Disney princess? Like, I don't know who's there and who came up with this. Not even AI would generate something this out of touch. Like, it blows my mind. But anyway, let's talk about the trailer now. I can't show you the trailer because I don't want to get, like, DMCA'd by BuzzFeed or anything. So I'll just show you some screenshots of it and tell you what's going on. So, they immediately get into the cringe because everything with BuzzFeed is like this imminent natural disaster of cringe, like a fucking tornado barreling towards you and you can't escape the embarrassment. So it opens up with the main character posting his comic on Twitter and getting roasted for it, saying it's bad, yikes, your comics are shitty now that you work for BuzzFeed. A literal self-insert with BuzzFeed here. So they're making comments like, you work for BuzzFeed, now your art's lame. And then one of his co-workers is like, it's the worst thing to do to engage with trolls online. And he's still engaging with trolls, and then he commits the ultimate sin. He summons the demon, David, by telling someone to die in a fire, DIAF. After sending that message, he then says this verbatim. Sometimes you've got to troll the trolls. So clearly this dialogue is written by actual 66-year-old men here, because Jesus Christ. So then, after saying die in a fire, this mysterious Twitter account pops up saying, why are you so mean? And if you look at the name, it's from Dear David. The shameless goofballs at BuzzFeed even had the gall to say that it's inspired by actual events. Oh, brother, it's inspired by an actual Twitter thread, not actual events. These events are about as real as the Blitzball Championship in Final Fantasy X. It's just a silly horror story that they cooked up. Nothing else. Just because it's written down in a Twitter thread doesn't mean that it's evidence that it's true. The trailer then goes into the same old, tired, generic, formulaic garbage that we've seen a million times. So here's this scary child, David, being a little goofball in the chair. He's here because I guess he didn't like the main character trolling on Twitter, I guess. He didn't like the die in a fire line, so now David's here to teach him a lesson. And of course, there's a BuzzFeed article being written about it. And honestly, this just seems like a really desperate attempt to remind people that BuzzFeed exists. So the more I watched the trailer, the more I realized that they're putting BuzzFeed in as many places as they can, and I really think that's because they recognize that nobody gives a fuck about them anymore. So this is just like a Hail Mary attempt to remind people that this is still a platform that exists. And my god, is it just awful to look at. It's so pathetic. The trailer drags on with more normal, boring trash with tiny little jump scares here and there and little creepy images. And then we reach towards the end here where he's getting out of a shower and he notices in the mirror, D-I-A-F. Die in a fire. The same thing he said to troll the trolls on Twitter, if you might remember. And now he's being haunted by the D-I-A-F statement. So this whole thing seems like David's really trying to troll the troll who was trolling trolls. Leave it to BuzzFeed to break new ground. Pioneers, I tell you. Absolute fucking geniuses. There's really nothing else to discuss with the trailer. It is literally just all the same exact horror movie trope cliche that you've seen actually a billion times by now, shoved into one desperate attempt from BuzzFeed to remind people that they're still around. So yeah, this is already shaping up to be an extremely embarrassing endeavor from BuzzFeed here. It's not something anyone asked for, ever, really, and it's also 6 years too late anyway. I just don't understand the thought process. Horror movies are always made on a very low budget, and this looks like no exception. It looks like it's a very low budget movie, so most of the time horror movies actually turn a very sizable profit because, like Blumhouse, for example, will make a horror movie for like $2 million, and then if it only does like a $8 million box office run, it still did pretty well. Like, that's still a financial success overall. That's why Blumhouse keeps churning out like pretty low effort horror movies pretty often, because they're cheap. And it doesn't have to perform extraordinary in the box office, and sometimes it does. It goes well above what it should have. It punched above its weight class, like, for example, Paranormal Activity. Very low budget and made 9 figures. So there's always so much room for horror movies to be a financial success because they're so cheap. But in this case, I don't see that happening, because who the fuck wants to watch this? I love fun, bad horror movies, but this does not look like a fun, bad horror movie. Even I'm not that interested in seeing it. And that's saying something. That's a fucking statement right there. You have dreadfully missed if you're making a bad horror film that even I'm bored by. So I might still see it out of pity. I don't know yet, but it just, I just don't understand what their thought process was here. It looks like shit. It really does. I don't think it's going to save the company. I think it's only going to continue to push the company's head even deeper into the toilet, but I guess we'll see. That's about it. See ya. Oh, hey, wait, this is the same actress from, the other short. The Look-See. My immersion's broken. Or it's the same universe and this woman is getting haunted by the Laundryman and the Look-See. And just has shit luck. Jesus, my room smells like straight asshole right now. But I didn't even fart, nor dogs aren't even in here either. Maybe the Laundryman snuck in and blasted a haunted fart in here. Get the fuck out of there! He's doing laundry. Glory Hole Action 3? Is that a horror short? Okay, so she gets the... You know what, let's just get to the plot point. She gets the armoire, there it is. Now scare me. Imagine being afraid of a piece of furniture. The tension! Could cut it with a fleshlight. Like, god damn it, like what the fuck do you expect as a horror director? I'll make this whole thing about a haunted armoire. How can I show it's haunted? I'll have it very slowly open a sliding glass door. Dope. That'll send shivers down the spines of all 9-year-olds. Fuck! What happened? Did the armoire just eat her clothes? Oh, the hair on her neck is standing up. You know, again, she clearly suspects the armoire of foul play. Why would she still trust it to keep the clothes in there? Why not just immediately get rid of the armoire? Like, hey, you know what? Spit my clothes out. I can hear the tapping in there. I'll get rid of it. Yeah, honestly, she should just call Billy the Exterminator. The man's exterminated every pest on the planet. Might as well tackle a few ghosts. Why is he doing that? Ah, it must have been the wind. Imagine being such a pathetic demon that the only thing you can possess is a fucking armoire. Oh my god!
Hey, hun!
Hey, hun, you mind if I look hot in front of this armoire?
There's a man floating above us.
Hey, don't give away his hiding spot. What the fuck?
I don't see a man.
It's just Pro Jared's dick pic on a string. It was that easy. Like, I'll be honest with you guys. If I saw a man floating above my bed, I wouldn't be able to just fall back asleep and be like, what the fuck are you doing in here?
Let's do it tonight.
And how are you doing that? Chris Angel, stop fucking floating above my bed. I've had enough.
Oh, I'm
Yeah, it's just Billy the Exterminator in the attic checking for rats. I like to imagine all of these horror shorts have a perfectly logical explanation if you look through it to the lens of it could have been Billy. That's not Maribeth! Don't fall for the trick!
I promise.
Well, what did you expect? The worst chef in Hell's Kitchen history?
In the blue kitchen, chef.
What do I need? What did I just call out?
He seems like a nice guy, at least. They must have brought him on for his personality.
Raj, I'm talking to.
I don't even know what the hell's going on or what happened or why.
He sounds like a cartoon character.
Please, kids, how dare you condescend to me? I'm 28 years old, I've been a professional in this industry 14 years, I work at a camp and I work my ass off.
I'm a Navy SEAL, I have 500 confirmed kills. You will respect me, Raj.
You stupid douchebag.
No, bro!
You're attacking me.
He's like Samuel Tarley right now, but with a worse attitude.
Man,
You bitch!
you're a waste of life, Raj.
He's a waste of life because he can't make pasta. I can't make pasta either, Boris. You want to come say that to my face? Huh? Huh, big man Boris? I'm on your side, Raj. Fuck these guys.
Listen, if you
Just too much.
No, I agree. Trev could not take Raj in a fight.
And Trev is at its
Fuck this Trev guy. Because, I mean, Raj was done so fucking dirty. No respect for him. The man's 49 years old, putting nuts to butts in the kitchen, going toe-to-toe with Chef Ramsay.